What's going on, YouTube? Zach is back, bringing you something very, very special today. But before we get into it, I just want to say a brief note about the holidays and wish everyone really well, whether you're celebrating Christmas, Jesus' birthday, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Boxing Day, whatever you're celebrating with whoever you're celebrating it with. I hope you have a great holiday. Um, I'm really thankful for all my viewers, as I always like to say, and so, if you enjoy my content, I really appreciate you watching and, sharing it and all of that. Let's get into it, though. The reason we're here today is to make a video about a defender, a very special Pokemon. A very special Pokemon that was just added to the game recently, Vaporeon. So I made my Latias video, obviously that did really well, and I really enjoyed Latias a lot as a Pokemon. And so I thought I would do something similar with Vaporeon, where it's the newest defender, so, I thought I'd make a guide video for it to sort of showcase its strengths, talk about why the Pokemon is good, the best way to play it, all that jazz. Yeah, just broad overall strokes, though. It's a really tanky Pokemon, it's really mobile, it can do good burst damage and hold down crowds on its own. It's very good at controlling space by being able to cover lots of space very quickly. Sort of similar to Ho-Oh in a sense, actually, which is why I think I enjoy the Pokemon a lot. We'll get into specifics in just a moment. A couple more notes. I'm going to put in the comments again, like in my Latias guide, a pinned comment with timestamps for all the parts of the video. So if you don't want to watch the whole video, or you just want to refer to a specific part in the middle of it, or want to go back into fresh memory, whatever you want to do, there will be timestamps where you can jump around wherever you want to be. And as always, if you enjoy the video, be sure to give it a like. Let me know in the comments what you thought, what you would like me to do differently in future videos, and subscribe if you want more content like this. And lastly, I have a Twitch. Go to the description, you'll see a link to my Twitch channel where I stream live. I try to stream live at least once a week. So if you ever want to watch me play live, you can come do that. But if you just like watching YouTube videos instead and want to do that, that's totally cool too. Do whatever you like, live your life. With that said, let's get into the intro for the Pokemon by talking about its abilities. First up, levels 1 through 3 obviously will be an Eevee, and you'll have Runaway, which restores the Pokemon's HP and nullifies damage from Pokemon from the opposing team. The ability goes on cooldown after it's triggered. It's a 30-second cooldown, and the healing is, it's okay at levels 1, 2, and 3. It's not much, but at that point in the game, it's a decent enough chunk of health. And, the idea behind Eevees is Eevee is the worst part of the game for them, so all of them, they all get really good at 4, so, that it's a weak healing early on doesn't really matter too much. The 30-second cooldown isn't really very relevant. It just basically means that you can't take damage too much as a baby. You want to evolve. That's the idea. Because when you do evolve at level 4 and onwards, you get Water Absorb, which is a better version of Runaway. You get a Water Berry after 30 seconds. And if the Pokemon takes damage and the berry is active, the shield nullifies the damage and restores the Pokemon's HP instead, just like Runaway. In addition to those effects, though, hitting a Pokemon from the opposing team with a move will reduce its ability's cooldown by 2 seconds and by 1 second with a boosted attack. So you're very incentivized, despite this Pokemon being a defender, you're very incentivized to play aggressively because you're going to get a lot of cooldown reduction on your Water Absorb when you hit multiple Pokemon with your moves and when you're just throwing out attacks as you're doing things. So Water Absorb really helps play into just how Vaporeon wants to play in general. The shield nullification and healing effect are really nice to have going into a team fight because you'll get a nice little chunk of health at some point when you need it. Even if you don't have it at the start of the fight, getting it in the middle of a fight is useful too. What else can I say about it? Not much. But obviously these abilities incentivize you to play defensively, and we'll talk about with the held items later how you can even give some more synergy to these abilities and make them stronger. With that said, let's now get into the basics of the Pokemon. I'm not going to talk about the attacks. It's like the boosteds are just... It's normal boosteds for Eevees, basically. We have Swift at level 1 or 2. It gives you... let me read what it says. It gives you... Has the user shoot 6 star-shaped rays in the designated direction. dealing damage to opposing Pokemon hit and reducing their movement speed by 35% for 0.3 seconds. The user is slowed by 30% while casting this move, and the slow duration is extended by 0.3 seconds for each star that hits the same Pokemon. So what that means is if you shoot all these stars into one person, they're gonna have a nice chunky, I think it's about half to, or like a 2/3 to 3/4 of a second slow. It's not a ton, or duration of the slow, it's not a ton of slow time, but the idea is you're a defender, you can play front line, you can engage with them hopefully, and your teammate will be behind you hitting them. And the damage with the stars is not too shabby. It is actually higher DPS than the other move you have available at levels 1 and 2. So I would actually recommend picking this over the other one. It recommends the other one, so I, like a lot of players, pick the other one normally, but I do think this one is a little better. We'll talk about the other one as well. You also have at 1 and 2 Tackle, which is a 6-second cooldown and has the user charge in the designated direction, dealing damage to opposing Pokemon hit, and shoving them for 0.25 seconds. The distance this move travels is cut short when colliding into opposing Pokemon. So it's really, really good for the burst damage to secure last hits. You really want to make sure you get at least level 2 before you go for contested farm. And the stun is actually pretty nice for stopping Pokemon in their tracks, giving your people more time to catch up with them to knock them out, or give your teammates more time to run away. You can use it like a ballistic missile and just insert yourself in a position where you can save someone really quickly, like they're trying to run and they're getting low, and then you tackle them, you stop the enemy team, and you're in between them and your ally now. So the repositioning aspect and the stun and the burst damage with tackle make it a better move overall, I think, but Swift is the better DPS early on. Nonetheless, you will have tackle for longer, because you don't get the new move for that until 6, so that's why I talked about it a little more. I'll also say that the dash is further than you think. It's not enough to jump over like some really long diagonals you would try to take on a wall, but you can actually get pretty good distance sometimes, and if you're stacking, it really helps with that too. With that said, we'll get into the first moves. Oh, I should have turned my phone's speaker off sooner. My bad. Okay, so level 4, you get to choose between Hydro Pump or Muddy Water to replace Swift. Hydro Pump is a 7-second cooldown and reads, has the user continuously launch a huge volume of pressurized water in the designated direction, dealing damage to opposing Pokemon hit and shoves them for 0.1 second. The move ends by unleashing a powerful blast of water, dealing damage to opposing Pokemon hit, and shoves them for 1 second. The user is slowed by 30% while casting this move. This move slows opposing Pokemon hit by 50% for 0.3 seconds, further extended with each hit. So it's a pretty long-winded way of saying it's sort of like Suicune's Boosted, where you'll start shooting this water gun in this direction, and at the end you'll do like one last final shot that does more damage and more slow. And if they get hit by all the shots in between and including the final one, the damage is actually pretty substantial. So you're going to get 5 of this, 1 of this, and 1 of this if you get all of them. So that's about 600, that's about 1100 at level 5, which is a ton of damage at this point, or at level 4, that's a ton of damage at this point in the game. And it just gets better as you get higher levels, obviously, right? Especially if you're on special attack items. You can see how at level 13, it's like 5 times this is about 1,000. These both are about, what, 1,200? You're getting a lot of damage with this Pokemon on Hydro Pump in the late game. It's a very heavy damage move, and at level 10, the boosted gives you the reduced cooldown by 1 second, so that's always nice, of course. Having a lower cooldown on any move makes it much better. I will say, one of the weaknesses of this move, despite the low cooldown compared to Muddy Water, is that it's really only useful against tight clusters of people or just individual opposing Pokemon, so it's the stronger move in 1v1s theoretically. The issue is Vaporeon, as a defender, you want to mainly tank for your team while also initiating and engaging, controlling space, and so you're not going to be able to control tight clusters of people all the time. If you can, and if your team is able to make use of Hydro Pump, I think it's a very useful ability and it's very strong DPS, but just keep that in mind when you're using it. Especially when you're considering, again, how your passive works, right? You want to hit people with your attacks multiple times, so Hydro Pump's good for that, but if you can't get too many people with multiple attacks on this, then it's not really getting the value you want. Alternatively, instead, you could go for what is the favorite option these days, the much simpler move of Muddy Water, an 8.5 second cooldown that reads, has the user splash muddy water around itself, dealing damage to opposing Pokemon, slowing them by 40% for 1 second, and throwing them for 0.6 seconds. So, just to clarify, the slow happens after throwing them, so it's a total of 1.6 second disable you'll be applying to them. The slow being 40% is a lot bigger than 30%, actually. And the AoE means that you're much more likely to hit multiple Pokemon with it. Not to mention, the move has a very, very brief startup animation before it comes out. And unlike a lot of moves that have that similar sort of effect, even if you don't actually get the move off before you're stunned yourself, it still goes off. All you need is the startup animate. All you have to do is press the button, and then whether or not the startup animation is interrupted, you'll still get the muddy water off. So you could even die after pressing the button, and I've had this happen multiple times where you muddy water into someone as a suicide attack, so you know you're going down, and they kill you obviously, but then the muddy water gets them as well. So it's very useful for trading in that sense. Your DPS continues after you're gone, and hitting multiple people with it definitely helps your passive getting that cooldown reduced by a lot. The longer cooldown's a little rough, but the disable's a little better, especially with the plus move giving you an increased duration of slow by 1 second. So that's 2 seconds at 40% slow, which is huge in mid-game team fights. And this is just a level 10 thing, so it's really, really useful. It's part of why EVs are always good, is they get all their moves and their boosters at really good levels. That said, as for which move you should pick, as I said, I think Muddy Water is generally favored. I think both moves have merits, and as ever with these guides, my philosophy always is, whatever works for you, the viewer, is what you should do. And if that means that something I've said is something you disagree with, that's completely reasonable, you know? Maybe you have some different idea of how you want to play the team fights or how they're going to go for your team, and you pick a different thing, and it works really great for you. But what I will tell you is why Muddy Water is generally favored by most players, and, you know, if that's enough for you to pick it, then you should pick it, and as ever, you know, I try to introduce these guides as a starting point for players, so the goal is this can help you think about the Pokemon, and as you get more experience and play with it, you can experiment more and figure out your own playing style. Sorry, I'm all over the place. With all that said, Muddy Water is generally favored because, again, the AoE is better against larger crowds of Pokemon, and the better disable is really substantial too, and the fact that it goes off even if you're knocked out is really good. And getting all your damage in one hit is often better than multiple hits, because even if you get interrupted, even if something happens, you can still get it off, and the burst damage it gives you is better for securing last hits at the point in the game, for harassing and just really minor engagements. That's a really big deal for Pokemon that want to stay mobile, so Muddy Water helps a lot with that. But Hydro Pump isn't bad by any means. It's obviously a matter of preference. This one does have the higher pick rate and win rate, though. So with that said, we'll move on to the option you get at level 6 between Aqua Ring and Flip Turn. Aqua Ring is an 8-second move that reads, has the user jump in the designated direction, creating continuous waves centered on itself for 4 seconds. Allied Pokemon who come in contact with the wave are enveloped by a veil of water that continually restores HP. The veil of water lasts 3 seconds and heals 7 times. And the booster gives you more healing. It's a very straightforward move compared to Flip Turn. Honestly, there's not a lot to say about it, except specifying a few minor details, I guess. It says you jump in the designated direction, and it's not a very big jump, to be honest. If you're expecting a lot of mobility out of Aqua Ring, you're not going to get it, and in fact, you can't even jump over short walls that you can normally eject button over or use most dash moves over, so it's really not very good for mobility at all. Except just, you know, getting on the map a little bit. And it's actually sort of a downside in that it gets countered by things like gravity, where you can't use dash moves in that, so you can't use your healing move that you need. It's really actually a big problem. But when you do get it off, it gives you healing to yourself always, of course, since it's always centered on you, equal to 280, and any allies around. Just kind of small ring, but as a defender, you're going to be in a mobile one at that. You're going to be playing with your team, hopefully, ideally, a lot, and so the healing will still be useful to them. What I've sort of noted in my own play, it's not really as good as something like Clefable's healing, since we were just talking about Clefable, but the fact that you're always getting it for yourself, and that you're a defender is a really big deal. A defender having a constant sustain mechanism means that you'll constantly be able to tank a lot of damage for your team, combine that with your passive and your other moves, and you can see how Aqua Ring is very, very useful. What else? I will say that I usually, when I pick Aqua Ring, I prefer to pair it with Hydro Pump because Muddy Water, getting close enough to hit people with the AoE usually requires better mobility than what Aqua Ring provides. And Aqua Ring, you want to maintain a tight formation anyway for this small circle of the healing, so you don't want to be super mobile, and you can make use of Hydro Pump then to play with and behind your teammates' damage. So, that's just a thought there. But obviously, do whatever you want with that. Like I said, pretty simple move. We'll go on to the other one, which is Flip Turn. By the way, this is a 7.6 second cooldown, so you get 5% CD reduction at 5. So that's the actual cooldown when you get the move, and the Flip Turn cooldown is 6.17 seconds. And it reads, has the user cloak itself in water for up to 3 seconds, reducing damage received by 25% and increasing movement speed by 40%, ramping up by 5% every 0.25 seconds up to 60%. This move can be used again within 3 seconds to charge in a designated direction, dealing damage and shoving opposing Pokemon for 0.6 seconds before jumping back in the opposite direction and gaining a shield. Vaporeon cannot auto-attack or cast other moves while cloaked in water. So, as with before, the second move we're talking about is the favored move. And the reason is, what you're getting out of it for yourself is way, way, way more than you're getting out of Aqua Ring. Aqua Ring gives you, when you get it at 6, it gives you about 700 healing when you use it. And if you have teammates nearby, they also get healing. So your value really comes in healing your teammates as well. Whereas Flip Turn, when you use it, you're going to get 2 hits on people for about 1,000 damage and give yourself a 1,200 shield. So it's like a 2,300, or 1,200, 2,300 point swing in terms of damage. Whereas Aqua Ring, to even compare to that, you need to heal 3 people at once. So, and that's usually not going to happen. So in a lot of ways, Flip Turn just number-wise is the better move. But even past numbers, the utility of this mobility is very, very, very good. To start with, this 3 seconds of increased movement speed means that you can really reposition on your opponents very aggressively in ways that they can't always react to properly. It means that a speedster who thought they were safely out of the fray is no longer out of the fray. You're going to chase them down and take them out. It means attackers trying to take cover behind their defenders can't get far enough away because you just chase them down. And it means the people that thought they could keep themselves on the other side of the fight from you can't, because you can always get to them with Flip Turn. Even aside from the movement speed boost, the jump you get is way, way further than this jump. This can get you over like the horizontal distance of those smaller walls, which is really, really ridiculous when you think about it, because those smaller walls are pretty wide. Going all the way across that is really insane, and I wouldn't be surprised if they nerfed that aspect of the move in the future. But for now, at least, it's a very, very useful tool. The plus at 12 gives an extra 40%, increase the damage reduction to 40% during the extra movement speed. So instead of 25%, you get 40%, which is huge. This move just does so much. It's really, really useful. You can see why it's the favored move, and again, why it's the higher win rate generally. But sometimes your team needs healing, and if your team needs healing, Aqua Ring can be very useful too. So they're both valid options, I think. I think the favored moveset of Flip Turn and Muddy Water has very natural synergy between the two, in that you can jump onto someone from a long distance away, stun them by jumping off of them, and then Muddy Water them when you're right next to them and they can't get away from it. You also hit all their friends around them as well. But like I said, Hydro Pump Aqua Ring can work well too, and if you mix and match, let me know how it goes for you. I generally prefer to pick all one or all the other though in this case, because I think the way all the moves play, they generally work best in that arrangement. With that said, your Unite move is Aquamarine Splash, 89 second cooldown at base. You get it at level 8. As you jump up high and dive underwater, creating a current that pulls in nearby opposing Pokemon for 0.3 seconds. Afterward, the user leaps out of the water, dealing damage to nearby opposing Pokemon, and throws them for 1 second. Dealing at 8, it will be, 700 damage about, and then you get a 6 second buff, a 30% movement speed, and a 40% max HP shield. Oh, by the way, I should have talked about the stats of Vaporeon sooner. But even at level 8, you can see HP is ridiculously high, and your defenses are both ridiculously good. And special attack's actually not bad either. It's not, I won't say it's good. It's not like Pikachu or Eldegoss even, but it's not bad. It's enough for you to get the job done in a lot of cases, And obviously, being a wall is your main job, so defense, special defense, and HP being high are all very, very good. But anyway, that 40% shield is a lot at that point in the game. In fact, as we like to do, let's get our handy dandy calculator, and we will find out how much that is. That is a 2,259 point shield. That is a lot of shield at that point in the game. You become really hard to kill after you use that move. So even just this buff duration part is a really big part of the move. It's another example of that. That was something I mentioned in my Latias guide as well, where the Unite move isn't necessarily always good, but the buff is good. However, the Unite move is actually very, very good here for a few different reasons. So to explain more about how it works, basically when you press the button, you become unstoppable for a short duration, and you hop around. That's what it looks like to me. Apparently, you're diving down. To me, it's always looked like Vaporeon hops around, and then on the last hop, you land and deal the damage around you. The first two hops before that, though, they slow Pokemon and pull them towards you. You get two hops, it goes bump, bump, bam. So the first two, you're drawing them towards you and slowing them down, and it makes it harder for them to escape, and you're unstoppable during that, so they can't stop you from messing with them. So it's a really, really great response if you see something like a Gardevoir ult coming, or a Delphox ult, or anything else you want to be able to get out of to still mess with your opponents. And then when you land on them, you're throwing them in the air, which again works really great to combo into Muddy Water, into Flip Turn, into Hydro Pump. Just really, really good with all this Pokemon's moves. You can see there's a lot of internal synergy with the kit, and the Pokemon's really, really tanky to support it all. It's not always the highest damage on its own, but Muddy Water is good burst, Flip Turn's really good burst and mobility, Aqua Ring's decent healing, and this is really good sustain damage. So you have a lot of tools to really make a good impact on a fight. I would say overall, the Pokemon should be played in a way to maximize both survivability and influence in team fights. And honestly, if you played Ho-Oh before, you'll find that this Pokemon fits like a glove. Again, with Flip Turn and Muddy Water, you're going to play similarly to something like Sky Attack and Fire Spin, where you're able to jump in and use this annoying move your opponents want to get away from, but they can't. And again, it's all tied together by giving you, first of all, a very substantial shield and good mobility, so really good survivability, really good mobility, and then, again, burst damage and slows to actually make it so your team can secure these KOs. You can hit them while they're low and finish them off yourself, or just chunk them down and slow them down for your attacker to finish them off from the back line, you know? That's a lot of times how Vaporeon's contributing DPS in fights is just controlling people and corralling them like a sheepdog. It's ridiculous. So with all that said, what else is there to say but to talk about the items? So we'll go to the build page now. Like I said, I usually like Swift first these days. As for which path you should take, I think top, middle, or bottom. I think bottom and top are both fine. I think top's generally preferred, but bottom's not bad either. You're a defender, you know, so you want to be where your attacker's at usually, or someone who wants to stand behind you, or needs someone bulky around them. So wherever that is in the map is where you want to be. And like I said, preferred build for me and most players these days is Muddy Water, Flip Turn. But obviously both of the moves are fine too, so feel free to experiment. As for Held Items, we'll start with Battle Items first, it's a little simpler. Because your Pokemon is very high HP, I have it set to level 12 right here. Generally speaking, Potion's always going to be a good option, so I would never say no to Potion on Vaporeon. But you can also consider something like X-Speed to really help your mobility even more. If you play Crustle at all and use Shell Smash, you know that having more mobility on top of your own built-in mobility, it ramps up, you know? It's like, oh, now I can chase them down in Flip Turn and X-Speed. They can't get away even further away, and I get across the map even quicker. It's really, really useful. And the other common item on this Pokemon is Eject button, as on most Pokemon. The utility Eject is always good. I would never say it's a bad pick on any Pokemon. The long cooldown is the only real problem, which is why I personally tend to favor Potion as the best item on Vaporeon. Because even in lane, it's good, where Eevee doesn't have bad HP. You get good use out of Potion as Eevee and as Vaporeon. and then you can use it 3 times as much as eject button almost. Other options to consider are slow smoke, which is buffed these days, I guess, so it's a little more worth picking. That works really great with all the other slows and mobility you have to jump on people and then smoke, and then muddy water and then smoke them so they're just stuck and it's really rough to move around. Goal hacker can be good, I guess, if you need a strong lane. But honestly, this item is not good in the late game. I usually don't like it very much. I don't really think any items are really worth picking. I would say really those are the 5 held items I would look at on this Pokemon, with really Potion, X Speed, and Eject Button being the top 3 by far. As far as held items goes, obviously any defender supporter would be loath to leave their EXP share at home, so don't be afraid of putting this on. It's very, very good, even though you are an Eevee. But if you're led with another Pokemon that gets their moves at 4, you might not mind leaving it off and running other items instead. With that said, I think your go-to defensive options are... I think there's 3 that are really high tier in my opinion. There's Resonant Guard, obviously makes use of your really high HP pool really well. Since you're constantly dealing damage in large AoE and moving around, and you are incentivized to attack as well with your basics to get boosted for your passive, you get a lot of shields on people, and that's really good. Big Root, obviously giving extra HP recovery, is nice if you pick Aqua Ring, but it also helps Potion, and it helps your passive. And you know, it's just a good item in general. I don't mind this item at all these days. And also, I synergy with Focus Band if you want to run that. That is the 3rd item I was going to mention. The HP recovery this gives you more time to survive long enough to use Potion, to get your passive off, to just give you more healing, to give you more time to use more moves. It's really, really nice in that sense. Really, really strong defensive option always on any defender. And actually, another one these days I want to give a shout out to is Tenacity Bell. I've experimented with this a few times, and it doesn't give you the healing effect that Focus Band does. So obviously, it's not as good in terms of like internal synergy with what Vaporeon wants to do with its other items and stuff. But it gives a lot of defense, and Vaporeon has a lot of HP. That's its best stat. So sometimes defense is all you need when you have 1,000,000 HP already. So not bad there. Other items that are worth considering. Sometimes damage is good, and if you're especially not running XP share, you can justify 1 or even 2 damage items. Curse is really good with your area of effect moves that can hit multiple Pokemon or have sustained effects, where you're able to get this effect in a very annoying way, and so it can really help cut down enemy healing in team fights. If you don't need Curse though, Drive Lens is really good utility on this Pokemon. It really ramps up your damage in the late game, and it makes you a very potent solo threat. Shell Bell is better survivability throughout the game, and if you're running Big Root, obviously it offers internal synergy again there as well. While also giving really good special attack and cooldown reduction for the slot. Other items to consider: if you're stacking, you can run special attack specs and AOS Cookie potentially for both, or just one. I would say that in general, this Pokemon's movesets are really valuable, and spending them on stacking is kind of not always what you want to be doing, but raw stats is good with stuff like Potion and with your Unite move, and it can also be good with items like Buddy Barrier, where you have more HP, you can give larger shields to people, and I think Buddy Barrier is really good on Vaporeon as well, because of its very, very high HP pool. I think other options could also include Rescue Hood, but only if you're running the healing move, obviously. The defense this gives you combined with the extra healing to your teammates makes that move really valuable and make this item slot still useful. So that's not bad at all. I think other generic defensive options are generally fine too, like Spoon, Glasses, Specs. But honestly, I think that if you want damage, Shell Bell or Drive Lens have better utility for Vaporeon. Spoon's not bad against really defensive lineups, but in general, I think that you want your items to do a little more than what those do. Those are generally better on raw attackers who only just care about doing as much damage as possible. I think Vaporeon's role in fights is a little more nuanced than that. I have not tried Floatstone yet, but in theory it works really well with Flip Turn to really get you around the map as quickly as possible. So if you want to try that, go nuts, but obviously it giving you attack and not special attack means that you're not getting as much out of the stats of the item. And again, with defensive items, you can also run Rocky Helmet and Assault Vest. I like to mention these two always, against heavy physical or heavy special lineups, respectively. And by heavy, I mean at least 4 users of defense or special defense needing items. If I see just 3, I generally don't think these are worth running, and I want something a little more broadly useful. But if I see a team predominantly comprised of special attackers, I would consider running Assault Vest, or mostly physical, especially melee Pokemon. Rocky Helmet gets a lot better. And Leftovers as well is not a bad consideration. It can work well with Big Root or Floatstone, since with Floatstone you want to be not attacking for 2 reasons. And with Big Root, it gives you more healing off the Leftovers, so you can sort of sustain like Ho-Oh does. So that's also something worth considering as well. But I would say your main options, the probably 4 that are best and worth considering, are Resonant Guard, Big Root, Tenacity Belt, and Focus Band. And then, of course, if you need XP share, that's really good too. So usually I find myself just struggling with that 3rd item slot. And then the choice just really comes down to personal preference or what you think the game needs. If you think you can get away with that in XP share, maybe you could run 2 different items, or run Big Root and Resonant Guard and something else. So there's lots to consider. Vaporeon's a very flexible Pokemon, and that's why I really enjoy it. It encourages sticking with the game in creative ways and, trying out new things, having fun. It's a very cool Pokemon, and I'm very glad to have talked about it at length today. I will have, at the end of the video, links to the 2 replays I have of Vaporeon on this channel so far. They're both with the Flip Turn Muddy Water moveset, and so you can get a good idea of why it's the favored moveset. But like I said, really do be willing to experiment and try new things, because that's the best way of learning, You have to get outside of your box and think about things differently if you want to understand the game better and really expand your skills as a player. And that's what I think is really fun about games like this. So, with all that said, I really hope you enjoyed watching. Like I said, do all the things, like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, follow me on Twitch. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I really, really appreciate you guys watching. Happy holidays, and yeah, take it easy, yo. Peace out.